Welcome back, everyone. I'm Tedward, and today we're driving this 1970 Mercedes-Benz 280 SL. Thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we get another opportunity to explore the W113 platform. This is kind of the end of the run for this style of SLs, the Pagoda. Unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately it's a beautiful day. Unfortunately, we do not have the iconic Pagoda roof, the hard top with a little bit of a dip in the center. That's probably one of the most beautiful statements in automotive history. And this is a time when the SL was still really a sports car. That kind of died after this because they started getting bigger and heavier and became more grand tours than sporty things. This has a 4-speed manual gearbox, and the rarer option was the 5-speed ZF. We've driven the 5-speed ZF in a beautiful 250 SL a little bit earlier than this, but this one's now the end of the line. They've punched it out to 2.8 liters. It's an inline 6, making just shy of 170 horsepower, driving only the rear wheels. It can be tough to find these in good condition, and this is a mixed bag. This car has a lovely interior. Paint and bodywork is definitely pretty original, or there's been some touch-ups with some big old globs and things like that. That's lifting. But, you know, despite this car having lived most of its life on Cape Cod, underneath, not that rusty, but it's had an entire engine rebuild. When I got under this car, I was kind of expecting it to be a mess, and then I'll try to pepper in some photos, but man, it's actually really super clean under there. So this is mighty hot. I'm glad this is easy to open. But under here, there's the heart of our baby. We were just out driving a 280 SE. This is before Mercedes-Benz was doing like A, B, C, D, E class kind of stuff. They're a little trickier for Mercedes novices. Sometimes I feel like a Mercedes novice. I was always a BMW guy, but I'm getting to learn. But the 280 SE was like the S-Class before the S-Class. We drove a 280 SE Cabriolet. So you've got a 2-door, 5-seater with a giant roof. And honestly, if you wanted the perfect 2-car solution cabriolet cars, you get one of these and you get one of those. So you've got your big, long, luxurious Grand Tourer that you can bring your friends and go places. And then this one can sit at the beach house or in the mountains where you just need to putter around. I think the style of these cars, this is the end. This is the end of like the iconic, beautiful Mercedes-Benz. And unfortunately today, in 2024, I just don't know what they're doing. I don't mean to be cruel, but I am very unimpressed with the design and quality of Mercedes-Benz today. And it's really refreshing to come back to cars from the 60s and 70s, even the 50s, in like a 300 SL. I mean, I get it. That's like $1 million car. But when you come back to these cars, you see like, wow, there's some serious heritage with these brands. They've ridden the wave of that heritage through some rough times. And hopefully in the future, we get quality back and this TriStar logo means something again. All right, before I wax poetic and start sounding like an old dude, let's take a look around. In the boot, tons of space. It's vast. It's just, yeah, that's your space. Big old fuel tank underneath and a full-size spare, which, oh, okay. Well, I guess you're just kind of sat there. You know, I'm sure there's some little brackets and things that may have gone missing over time. There is your fuel filler over here, nice and easy, unlike the 280 SE, which is actually behind the license plate. And then back here, I guess they were just beachcombers because they fitted these with practically, these look like they're home stereo speakers, and I think they're just sat here. They're not bracketed in, so we're gonna not go too heavy on the brakes. I think the interior of these cars is always really nice to get in because they're just simple, they're beautiful, they're paint matched here. In the 280 SE video, you'll see like all the gorgeous wood and it's perfect. And this is what normally happens to this stuff. Just over time, weather, sun exposure, all that stuff. It's not terrible, but you know, this is what they end up looking like decades and decades later. This has a Nardi wheel, kind of a cool little upgrade. I think that's classy. And then in here, let's see, we've got these guys, which if we were to put the roof up, this is how you clamp them down. You knock them in like that. We're not doing that today because I just want to go top down and enjoy this thing. Gluing us to the road on a little 14-inch wheel with these beautiful paint matched hubcaps is a 185 section tire, all round, so kind of skinny, but you know, it matches the vibe of the car. And this is also a time before the roll bars in the R129 that we got much later, the real iconic SL of my generation. You get the pop-up roll bar to make sure that if you flip the thing, you do not get decapitated. Such is not the case in this 280 from 1970. So in we go. There's our dashboard. You may notice the engine is not running and it appears to be stuck at 2,300 RPM. That's okay. We'll be fine with that. And then over here, our speedometer, the little cute hub for the needle, is sat at the bottom of the gauge. So maybe someone who buys this wants to open that up and kind of redo some of the interior pieces and the wood. That'd be really cool. For safety, we just have a lap belt. Unlike the 280 SE from 2 years prior, that actually had an over-the-shoulder belt, which is a little surprising. But here we are. All right, so make sure we get a good neutral. Key in the ignition. Jumps right to life, nice and stout. Our parking brake is a little handbrake right here. Into first. There's always that iconic little whistle. Here, listen to this. You'll get the little whistle from the powertrain. I would know that sound blindfolded from a mile away. Very short first gear. And it's a 4-speed, so there's no overdrive. I don't know, actually, I assume fourth gear is 1-to-1. I don't know that for sure. You can go ahead. I'm practically stopping. People looking at me funny because I've got a camera on my face, and I completely forget because I just drive like this all the time. So at this point, I'm like, what are you looking at? Oh, right, me. Well, I guess our tach doesn't give us anything, so we'll just be aware of where our red line may or may not be. We won't rev it out too high. But man, these things are just nice and torquey. They're easy to drive. That's why they make good like summer home cars, because you know, you drive up in the SUV and this is sitting in the garage. Doesn't need to be a showstopper. Doesn't need to be some incredible concourse winner. It just needs to get you around. And you don't ever, like when you go places like that, you don't ever want to put the top up. You just want to park it at the grocery store or down by the dock or at the beach or whatever and just leave it. And like, no one's going to mess with your thing, because it's like, well, who's going to care enough to mess with like a car with kind of grody wood and things like that? It's fine, you know, like you can just park it and not think about it. You're not like, oh my goodness, what if this gets a door ding? You're like, well, the thing's been painted 3 times. Who cares? new rock wall, looking good. Gearbox doesn't want to be rushed. Once in a while I get comments on these videos where they're like, oh, well, you're shifting slow. It's like, well, look, a lot of times when you drive old cars and they have crunchy nightmare synchros, it's because they were driving like these commenters believe you're supposed to. Just slamming gears. Like, a gearbox will tell you what it wants. You do not tell it. You request a gear. It accepts the gear. So we get off the line, go for a second, it'll fall into place. You apply some pressure, it pops in. I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and tell you how to drive a manual transmission, but I do think it's oftentimes very strange when people are like, you gotta grip it and rip it. Like, oh my goodness, it is not a dragster, it is not a Tremec and a Camaro. Overall, pretty easy to drive. I mean, the steering's phenomenal. It's nice and cushy and luxurious. Responsive engine, but it's a little lazy. It's funny because you think of this as like, oh, it's like just a sub 3 liter inline 6. Probably not going to be that heightened insanity. Probably going to be a little frenetic or something. But no, they're like kind of big, heavy things. So it's odd that even as an inline 6, it sort of wafts along and behaves a little more like a big boy engine, like a V8 or even like a German V12. Let's see if we can do it. There we go. I haven't done that in a while. That's the beauty of a small car and roll-up windows. You can still roll them up on your own. You can hear the little metal clamps for the roof jingling around in the glove box. But yeah, this is great. She's not a speed racer. It's just a nice, relaxed cruiser, but it's light. It's light on its feet. It doesn't feel like you're lugging around this big thing. Still plenty of poke in this thing. It's pretty good. I've been honestly having a lot more fun in cars that are a little more luxurious and involved with the driving experience versus like new things that are super hardcore. Like I don't need the new M5, for example, right? We're looking at, obviously we can't drive it yet, but we're looking at a big heavy sports car. I just don't care anymore. I want to drive light, even slow things that have a little bit of tactility and driving experience to them. And I know from a safety perspective that, a little bit of that is removed from the equation when you drive cars like this, but I am just unimpressed at this point with every all-wheel drive, twin-turbo, V8, 5-seater. Oh my God, it does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and look, it goes 205 miles an hour. Who cares? You can't do it anyway. Cars got faster and traffic got worse. Roads got worse. So not only did the cars get faster where you absolutely cannot use them, but wheel sizes got bigger. And now, everywhere you drive, you hit a pothole and you're making an insurance claim on a wheel because everyone's got, 21 or 24-inch wheels on the new Silverado RST EV. That's bananas, you're going to break stuff. So, sometimes we go back in time and I have these experiences where we're like, oh, why don't we just go and drive something that's a little slower, a little more involved, a little more raw, and in a convertible, luxuriously exposed. And I like it better. Do I want to drive on the highway in this for hours? Absolutely not. But go, little chipmunk. He made it. I think. Shit. I might have hit that. I'm sorry, buddy. We may have ended a life in the SL. So I know this is just a short little drive, but it's a short little drive in a car that, in certain specs like this, with the 4-speed, not the 5-speed, not like a early 60s 250, are attainable. These are attainable cars, and if you're not daily driving them and you just keep them moving once in a while, probably not in it for that much money in terms of maintenance. Just do some oil changes, keep them running. It's okay if they leak a little bit. They're gonna just get a pan. Just keep them topped off. A lot of people drive old Range Rovers and Defenders and stuff, and geez, those things are absolute nightmares. But I think this is a lot of fun, and I think even if it's not a GT3, it's not the latest and greatest, I think you're gonna have fun driving some older classics and maybe go explore some stuff like even a 944. Get a 944 cab. So thank you to Bond Group. I know what a crazy conversation this has turned into, but I'm just saying, you don't always need to go get the newest, heaviest, most expensive thing on the market that now has like a battery. It's just a little depressing, and I want to preserve this experience in a way that gets people excited about them and keeps them on the road. Maybe not for your daily use, but certainly for the occasional weekend trip or your second home if you are so fortunate. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive. Go out there, row your own gears. Don't be a snob about it, but enjoy it. Figure it out. And even if you're bad at it, maybe you'll get better if you do it more. I have a friend who's doing that right now. He just keeps going and renting cars, and he's just getting to be a little proficient manual driver. And now he wants to go buy and replace his current car with a manual. Maybe that'll be you. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.